We are talking Island Zero, a low-budget horror creature feature directed by Josh Geriston and written by Tess Geriston, who I assume is his wife or sister or something. And this feels like a loving homage to Stephen King. This very much feels like it's cut from the same cloth as a Stephen King novel. It almost feels like it should be an adaptation of some long-lost King novel that we've never heard of. And it's fairly ambitious and at the same time fairly clever with what they've done here. So the story focuses on this this fairly remote island, which is apparently 40 or so miles off the coast of Maine. And if you know Stephen King, you know Maine's one of his favourite areas. And it's this small fishing village which is sparsely populated, but there are people who live there, and we meet a kind of bunch of them. So it's an ensemble piece, this film. There's a few kind of like what you call, I suppose, lead characters, but it's ultimately an ensemble movie here. So we get to know a little bit through the cast. I thought it does a good job of getting some information from pretty much all of the kind of the main players here. And there basically seems to be some type of unknown creature or creatures that seem to be coming from the ocean, taking out all of the fish and kind of wildlife in the kind of surrounding area, and then ultimately coming inland and attacking the human populace. And there seems to be no boats that can kind of get to this island safely, and their communications are cut off, and the kind of dwindling islanders have to try and figure out what's going on and how to stop this kind of like this mysterious threat from beneath the waves. So let's talk Island Zero. Now the thing here is the budget is low, but I feel its ambition and the cleverness of the filmmakers do a good job of hiding that fact to a point. Now the first thing I've got to say, I thought the plot of this movie was very good. It's so reminiscent of Stephen King, it really is. And if you're a Stephen King fan, you'll be well to check this movie out. I feel it does a good job of aping his kind of style. And the way it's kind of where it's set, the kind of the cast of characters, their kind of different backgrounds and stuff like that. This kind of like mysterious enemy that we kind of find a little bit more about later on in the movie. Yeah, very much reminiscent of Stephen King. So the story was good. I thought that was a good, well-told story ultimately, with some interesting kind of like scientific kind of like explanations for stuff as well, which I thought was quite good. The cast, I think, all do a pretty good job. There are some day players, some extras, some kind of smaller members of the cast that are a little bit on the kind of the poorer side acting wise, but for the most part the kind of the main cast at least do a good job here of portraying realistic people who you kind of you care about to a certain degree. The actual creature designs themselves we'll come on to again, but they had a good idea in regards to maybe what these things are. I don't like some aspect of it, which we'll come on to, but that was quite good. And the film genuinely does have a growing sense of suspense that kind of builds and builds as the danger level increases, and obviously we find more and more layers of this movie that seem to be uncovered. What doesn't work, as I've mentioned, there's a couple of like ropey acting scenes from some of the smaller less developed cast, their extras, day players, stuff like that. The creatures themselves, now I'm going to tie this in without trying to give away spoilers. It's a low budget film, and there's a conceit here that the filmmakers used to not really show you anything on screen. Now it works in the logic of the film, but in practice what you see on screen is a little bit laughable sometimes, particularly the death scenes of our characters. So when we see characters get killed on screen, it looks a little bit silly, and this is because of how they've set up what these creatures can do. It doesn't really make a lot of sense when you think about the biology of these creatures and what actually happens to some of these bodies and stuff like that. Doesn't make some sense here, and it looks a little silly in practice as well. These creatures have a visual trick, shall we say, and that's all well and good for hiding the budget, but when you see them attack something on screen, or you know, it looks a little odd without kind of giving away spoilers. I feel like I've done a good job there, you know, without giving anything away. And there's an element that's kind of brought on later on in the film that involves sort of a greater conspiracy, so to speak. I thought that was just a little bit too silly, really. I mean, it just doesn't fit with the kind of the sophisticated nature of the rest of the film. I understand they kind of want to have a final mic drop towards the end of the movie, but it just doesn't make sense, and ultimately just becomes a little bit on the too sillier side. And until that point, the film has been quite kind of like understated and quite kind of mature. And then it just gives a little bit of a silly twist towards the end. So I think that maybe that kind of, I wasn't so keen on that one. But ultimately, I feel this is a solid movie. I mean, it's very well paced. It has a growing sense of tension. Feels a little bit like a TV miniseries in a way, but it's just, you know, it's a film. But you've got characters that seem like realistic characters, just everyday people that maybe would be on this island. They all feel like they're getting a kind of, or all the main players feel like you do kind of get a good enough kind of characterization. The acting, you know, is good for those characters, and they feel like genuine people. And that you are more and more engaged as the film progresses, and you kind of want to find out what happens, you know, what happens next and stuff like that. So overall, I've got to say I was fairly impressed with this very kind of like this kind of low budget kind of creature feature horror movie that is part horror movie, part kind of action, part mystery. Yeah, I mean it definitely does a good job here of hiding its kind of low budget roots and making it an engaging and entertaining movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. So I would definitely recommend this one. It's not that it's a few shortcomings, and like I said, the budget does. You know, it's a little bit kind of obvious that it's low budget, but it's worth watching unless you only ever watch kind of like big budget movies. So 7 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.